What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 18 of the Downtown Browntown podcast. I'm your host, Downtown Brown. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date on all my future content when it is posted. And follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. I'm at downtown underscore brown 33 on Instagram and at downtown underscore brown on Twitter. Today, I'm joined by a special guest here. It's my first time having a guest on the show. I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to kick it up to Philip here and just tell a little bit about yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Philip. I'm also known as Bucks_take on Twitter. I don't have really any other social medias, but if you do want to contact me or message me or anything, I'm on Bucks_take on Twitter. But yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Cool. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to do a mid-season review. The Bucks coming in at 22-14 through the first half of the season. We kick off the second half tomorrow against the New York Knicks at home. So my first question for you is going to be, how do you feel about the Bucks halfway through the season? Are you happy with where we're at, 22-14? What are your thoughts there?
I think we're good. We're not as good as we were last season. We definitely weren't as good as we were last season. Last season was like I don't know what you call it. It was not an asterisk for us, but it was definitely a year that was surprising for us. Like we didn't expect we were going to do that good last season, right?
A little bit of an outlier, yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't really want to compare to us last season because I feel like it was kind of like an outlier season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I think we're definitely doing good. Like we're in third, right? We're not doing bad. We're in a good spot. We shouldn't be we're not, I feel like we're right in the middle. Like we shouldn't be complaining. We're right in the middle. So I think we're good. I think we're where we should be. I don't have any complaints.
I completely agree. The one word I described for how I feel about the Bucks halfway through the season is I'm content. I mean, it's been a weird season, man. I mean, just COVID. I mean, no fans. I mean, the Bucks definitely thrive on their fans at Fiserv Forum. I'm a season ticket holder myself, and man, I miss going to the games. I'll be going to one soon here coming up, but I mean, it's just been a weird year. You got Drew missing 10 games. I mean, in a year where we trade away out of our depth to get a quality player like Drew Holiday, when that player is out for 10 games, you're going to see the impact of that. So, I mean, look at other teams around the league. I mean, Boston 19-17. I mean, they've got great players on their team. Clearly, they're struggling. Toronto is, I think, 2 games under 500. Miami is struggling. I mean, we're only 2 games back from Philly and all this stuff going on. I mean, I'm content. Brooklyn is a powerhouse for sure. We're only 1.5 back from them though. So, I mean, I think this is a year that getting that 1 seed would be pretty valuable just because, we could maybe avoid a Brooklyn and a Philly in the second round of the playoffs, which is something that they might need, So, yeah, I mean, you got to be somewhat pleased with it and just hope that we stay healthy the rest of the season and just continue to trend upward and start playing well when it matters most in the playoffs. So I'm definitely content with where we're at. So next question for you is, what's your biggest surprise of the season from a positive perspective?
Positive perspective. I would say our biggest surprise in a positive perspective definitely has to be either Bobby Portis or Bryn Forbes, hands down. I think I would lean more towards Bryn Forbes because we didn't really know what we were going to get out of him. We knew he was a bench player on San Antonio. We knew he was all right, but he's been shooting insanely. Like he's number 2 or number 3 right now in 3-point percentage.
Yep.
He is insane. So definitely a good bench piece, better than expected. So yeah, that's my biggest surprise.
No, I'm definitely with you on both of those. I had down Bobby Portis and just Drew Holiday in general. We'll start with Bobby Portis. I mean, he's shooting 50% from 3. I think he's
incredible
in the NBA. I mean, who would have thought that? I mean, I knew the guy was a bucket, and that's what he did. High energy guy, can score, defense a little hit or miss. But man, has he just been outstanding. The Bucks have really hit the home run with that biannual exception contract the last couple of years. Brooke Lopez 2 years ago it turned out really well, and maybe not so much right now, but Bobby Portis as well has played just outstanding. I mean, I hope the guy gets more minutes going forward here. He's been far exceeded my expectations, and I actually really liked the signing at the time. Bryn
Mhm.
Forbes too. I mean, he's 46% from three, I believe,
He's
and
shooting, let me see, shooting 45% right now.
okay, just it must have dipped just a little bit.
Yeah.
Man, he's been great. I mean, on a team like the Spurs, where just he's got that basketball IQ coming from a Popovich, and just
Mhm.
playing that swing style of offense, and he's just been a great fit for the team in general. Seems to have a connection with Giannis as well, which obviously is very important for the
That's great.
Bucks team. So definitely agree with you there. And we'll go to Drew Holiday. I mean, I knew he was good. I knew he was a good defensive player. I just
Mhm.
didn't know that he was that good. Like he can
Mhm.
guard 1 through 3 easy, can switch on any of those guys. We've seen him guard guys like LeBron James, Kevin Durant this year. I mean, I don't really want him guarding Kevin Durant, but I mean, he can do it. I mean, he's just
Mhm.
a pest. He gets in your face and he's really strong. I just didn't think he was this elite of a defender. I mean, obviously Eric Bledsoe was great for us and all NBA defensive team the last 2 years, but Drew Holiday, I think, is a step above him defensively. I mean, just in terms of the switching ability, you can't throw Bledsoe on a three. He's just too short. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
he's ripped, but I mean, he just can't hold his own against a guy like a LeBron or someone of that nature. I mean, that's why we had like Wesley Matthews to kind of play that role of guarding a Jimmy Butler or a player like that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and Drew Holiday's offense as well is definitely better than I expected. I mean, he's just so composed with the ball, complete opposite from a Bledsoe where you just wanted to cringe, when he had the ball sometimes driving in the lane. Like, I just felt like he would just barge in there because he's so strong. And then, like, he would just he'd be in there and be like, I don't know what to do, and then just throw it away. But
Mhm.
Holiday's just a complete opposite. He's a great passer. I mean, we've seen him
Yeah, he's a great passer.
make some excellent, like, full court passes to
Insane,
Giannis
insane.
and Chris. And he's just aware of everything that's going on. He makes the right plays,
Mhm.
and obviously he's a pretty good shooter. Obviously better than Bledsoe, more consistent.
Oh
And
wait, and anyone's better than Bledsoe, honestly. Like,
except when he plays the Bucks, it looks
yeah,
like. I mean,
yeah.
has been lighting us up, but obviously that's nothing that's going to be consistent. So when we saw him hit that step back game winner against the Grizzlies there just about a week ago. So I mean, he's got the clutch gene in him. We saw him a couple seasons ago sweep the Portland Trailblazers in the playoffs when they were the 6th seed and
Yeah.
just really get into Damian Lillard. So I mean, that's the kind of guy I was expecting, but man, he's still exceeding my expectations. And I think he's going to be a player that's going to be even better in the playoffs.
Mhm.
Now that he's healthy, COVID free, hopefully to see him back in the starting lineup here come tomorrow. I'd be surprised if he wasn't starting, but yeah, I mean, that's got to be the biggest surprises for me are Holiday and Portis.
Mhm.
So we talked positives, so now let's switch it to the negative side. What is your biggest surprise from a negative perspective this season?
It's tough. I have two players in mind, and I don't really want to like say the second name, but the first name for sure has to be DJ Augustine. I think we can all agree that DJ Augustine has been a huge letdown. He was supposed to be our backup point guard. He's supposed to be the guy behind DiVincenzo, who's supposed to be that veteran guy who kind of leads him into that starting role. And I don't know how many points he's averaging. Let me see. Um he's averaging points. Let's see. 6.1 points.
I was gonna guess six. Actually.
6.1 points. And he's our bench guard. Like, that's not acceptable, honestly. Like, it's all right. His shooting's it's okay. Like, his shooting hasn't been that good. His You can tell when he's at the top of the key when he's dribbling it in. Like, he just passes it right off. He's not aggressive like he used to be. He's old. I just think we need to get rid of him. Like, it's too much. We need to get another guard who is younger. And I think that's a thing. We brought Miles Powell up, right? So
Yeah,
that's going to be a plus. I'm not sure, though. I really don't know.
yeah. I mean, I go back and forth on Augustine. He was a guy I kind of wanted the Bucks to sign in the offseason, and it was more just recency bias from him playing really well against the Bucks in the bubble in that first round playoff series. I mean, just a guy who hits tough contested threes and had that ability to drive and maneuver and make the right pass. But I've been up and down on him all year. I mean, I think he has a role on the team where if he just can play that catch and shoot role where
Mhm.
I think he's shooting 42% from three when he shoots catch and shoot shots. Like that's
Oh,
his role.
oh,
So
that's
he needs to he just doesn't if he's operating the offense, running the offense, it hasn't went super well. I mean, I think he really struggled early on. I think he's gotten a little better, looked a little more quick getting to the basket and just not even trying to hit those layups because man,
Mhm.
he's gotten stuffed badly
Mhm.
many times this season. And it's
Mhm.
almost embarrassing to watch at times.
Mhm.
But I think he does pretty well, like doing some of those crazy like in the air passes. So I still think an upgrade there would be great. I mean, man,
Mhm.
George Hill would be awesome to still have on
Oh
the
my,
team.
if we still had George Hill, that would be, I don't know. I don't know what we'd be like right now.
Yeah, I love George Hill ever since we signed him. I still have
Mhm.
flashbacks in that playoff series against Boston 2 years ago, and he just crossed the shit out of Kyrie and
Yeah.
slammed on him in the paint.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just great. And what, shooting 50% from
Mhm.
three last year
And
before
he's really consistent. Like he's like you know what you're gonna get out of him. Like last year, the whole year he was shooting what about 45? He was closer to 50 like the whole year last
I
year.
think he was like over 50
He
for
was
like
over 50.
maybe like up until the season got canceled. Like it might have
Oh
been right
wow,
around
that's
50. And
crazy.
then obviously the bubble was just a travesty for a lot of
Mhm.
different reasons. I'm not gonna
Yeah, that was
get
we
mad
don't
at
talk
George
about
Hill
that.
for that one. I think just all the players in general didn't meet their
Yeah.
expectations. But yeah, I mean,
Bledsoe and Bledsoe in specific though. Bledsoe in specific.
I definitely agree with that one. I'm a huge Bledsoe fan still. Like, just I loved the guy. Like,
Yeah.
we were so
Yeah.
close to winning a title with
Mhm.
him. I mean, 2019. Like, if we win that game three against Toronto, what
Yeah.
double overtime game, I believe. If we win that game, I mean, obviously we lost four in a row. I don't think we lose four in a row in that scenario.
And that series came down to the series prior that you just mentioned with Toronto. That one came down to Chris Middleton not showing up. So like it was either like it always seems like Giannis has that second option that doesn't show up, and it's just it sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah, it really does. And that's where a guy like Drew can come in and hopefully be that steady number two for him.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
what you want. Drew, regular season, Drew's a two, Middleton's a two. I don't
Yeah.
really care. Like
Yeah.
they're
I
pretty
think they're equal. I think they're equal.
exactly. They provide different roles.
Mhm.
I don't even want to get down that debate. It's not really worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just having the ability to have a guy like that in the playoffs is what we need. And Drew Holiday is hopefully going to be that guy. So, yeah, I mean, I think backup point guard is definitely somewhere where we could look to upgrade. And I'm DJ Augustine. Just it's tough to watch sometimes, but right now we got to ride with him. We got to give him
Mhm.
some minutes and see what he can do, and hopefully he can progress.
Mhm.
I'm gonna throw one more negative in there, and that's gonna be Brooke Lopez.
Yeah.
I, it's not necessarily his scoring. I just think he looks a step slower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clearly, his rim protection is not as elite as it was. I was looking at a stat the other day, and it said like in the percentiles, like the last two seasons with Brooke Lopez on the court, we were in the 100th percentile, and this season it's like 58th in terms of like rim protection in general.
Mhm.
Clearly, there's a dip there. He's not blocking as many shots. I mean, there were games he had like 5, 6 blocks the
Mhm.
last couple of years, just out of this world. I never expected that from him when we signed him in the first place. Just thought
Mhm.
he'd be a center who could space the floor for Giannis and hit those threes, which he
Mhm.
can definitely do.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, he just looks a step slower to me. And for a team that really values the rim protection for their defensive scheme, I mean, it's taken a big dip, and we're definitely seeing it this season. So, I mean, I think we're kind of stuck with him. We'll get down the trade potential trades here in a little bit. I think Brooke Lopez ultimately stays on the team. I think he still has a role. I just
Yeah.
think that we've got to blend in a little more Bobby Portis and maybe throw in some other like rim protecting center that can play 10 to 20 minutes a game
Mhm.
and just be more of that role, and then have Brooke Lopez come in and just kind of be a shooter and guard, like, because he's valuable to for teams like a Philly who has an
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, like a clear dominant center, a big center. Like
Mhm.
Giannis could guard Embiid, but I don't know if you want that.
Mhm.
He's clearly better as that main helper being able to block shots, get his hand in there, get some steals. And I think Giannis in general needs to guard more elite players on offense in general. Like when we played the Nets earlier in the season, we had Connaughton getting switched on Durant like continuously. And it's just like, you can't let that happen. Like you got to have Giannis who matches up with him from a height perspective, guarding these elite defenders. I mean,
Yeah.
defensive player of the year last year. So
Mhm.
clearly he's a great defender. So you got to
Mhm.
utilize his skill set and just get him more involved defensively.
Yeah.
I think that'll help the Bucks going forward. But
Mhm.
yeah, man, I mean, Brook Lopez for me is, I love him. He's been a great player for us, but I've definitely been disappointed and did not expect this dip from him this year. I don't think really anyone
Yeah.
did.
He's like he's definitely a consistent player. Like he definitely puts on the same amount of stat line usually every night.
Mhm.
But I just find like you said, he's a step slower. You can tell that when he's in the paint and the opposing team dishes it out to the corner for a three, he's never able to get there in time. He's just not. He's too slow. He can't cover the perimeter, and it's sad. It's just sad.
I completely agree. You know, it's just that we relied so heavily on his abilities on the defensive end the last 2 years, and any sort of dip is clearly going to make an impact, and it has. So, got to go Brook Lopez for me for that one. So now let's jump into coaching a little bit here. Let's talk about Coach Bud. What is your stance on Coach Bud? Were you in the camp of, did you want him fired last offseason after the disappointing loss to the Miami Heat in the bubble? Or did you want him fired when we had that 5-game losing streak, when Twitter was just going wild, fire Bud, fire Bud? I mean, they're trying to get that trending on Twitter at one point in time.
Yeah.
So what is your stance on Coach Bud in general?
First of all, I wasn't like, I don't like Bud, but I don't really also approve the whole like firing Bud in the middle of the season. I don't think that's something that's smart. Like, we can't have an interim coach that's not something that we need right now when we're trying to win a championship. That's just not smart. I think he needs to be fired. I thought he should have been fired last year when we lost. I think he got completely out coached by Spoelstra. We all know that. Like his defensive schemes were outdated. Like the first 2 games, okay, he did all right. And then Spoelstra picked up on what he did defensively, picked up on what we did offensively, did what he had to do, and Bud couldn't adjust. And I think the front office should have seen that it's literally a reflection of Atlanta. Like he had so many stars in Atlanta. He had Millsap, he had Schroeder, he had all these keys.
Right.
He had so many good players and still couldn't get it done. It's literally just him not being able to get it done in the playoffs. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to digest there. I mean, I think if they would have fired him, you're right. They should have done it last offseason. Like clearly a midseason change, especially this year with COVID, less practice time. There's not much just team camaraderie in general. So I just don't think that would make sense. I mean, a lot of people think Darvin Ham is more of a hot name as a head coaching guy. Like I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I just don't think that it's really going to do much good firing Bud midseason. Like you got to ride it out with him at this point. And the only reason why like I'm okay with them keeping him is because we wanted Giannis to sign the contract. And that was obviously the number one important thing for the Bucks this last offseason. I'm not saying firing Bud would have changed anything. It could have, but I think that was their main focus and they didn't want to make too many wholesale changes. So from that perspective, I'm okay with it. You know, obviously if he didn't sign the contract, who knows what would be happening this season. It would just be a mess. Luckily you don't have to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, going back to your take on Atlanta too, I agree with, for the most part, the only thing I counter a little bit is like, they really didn't have that Giannis, you know, like they had all-stars. What they had, was it 4 all-stars that
they had 4 all-stars.
Didn't make much sense to me. Kyle Korver, I think, slipped into there, a former Buck as an all-star, which is kind of funny. But they didn't have that Giannis, and you had LeBron and the Cavs just down.
That's true.
So that's my only take there. I mean, I definitely like it's you're totally right in terms of like just him not being able to get it done in the playoffs, not making adjustments, that sort of thing. I think there's just a little more to it, but I definitely don't disagree there. it's nice to see him starting to make some adjustments this
Mhm.
season. You know,
Mhm.
that the whole drop coverage
Yeah.
defense thing, where I've talked about numerous times on this podcast, just isn't getting it done right now. I mean, teams are taking advantage of it. They have lots of film on it from the last two postseasons, from Toronto and Miami, just dominating that defensive scheme that we were running. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, we got to ride it out with him at this
Mhm.
point. I think it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And if we disappoint in the playoffs again this year, he's got to go. I
Mhm.
mean, you got Giannis on the contract. That's all good. And clearly, we don't have really any salary to work with. So that's
Mhm.
one way you could, you know, get a little spark with the team. You know, maybe have the team get a little bit better, is have a coach come in. I mean, look at Philly this year. Doc Rivers coming in.
Mhm.
Clearly, he's been a positive impact for them.
Mhm.
When Brett Brown has been, I'm not saying he
Yeah,
was,
Brett Brown was.
but he kind of was in a way. Like,
Yeah.
didn't have that natural like coaching skills that a guy like a Doc Rivers does.
No, Doc Rivers is special.
Yeah, I agree there. So, yeah, I mean, I think we got to ride it out with him and just see what happens, and hopefully we can make a deep run. So,
Mhm.
staying on the terms of Coach Bud here, what are your thoughts on the bench rotation this year? Do you like what we're seeing? Do you wish there'd be more of a certain player, less of another player? What are your thoughts there?
I think for certain situations, certain people shouldn't be on. Like I see a lot of people on Twitter, they say like, oh, Pat shouldn't be on because he can't defend for certain players. But you guys also need to realize that Pat is a great 3-point shooter. And him not being on the defensive end means that he's not going to be on the offensive end. So when you take him off, he's not going to be able to hit 3-point shots for us. So like there are going to be times where these bench players aren't going to be as good in certain areas. Yeah, we know Pat isn't as good around the rim, around defending, but we know he's great at facilitating. He's great at setting screens. He's great at shooting. He's great at a lot of things. I think Thanasis needs a lot of more minutes as well.
Really? Okay, I'm interested to hear this.
Thanasis is his energy. Like, I don't know, like, you know how we lack in the third quarters. Like we come in out of the half and we just seem like we're just like a whole different team, because usually the first half we're known for being like a really good team in the first half.
Yep.
And then we come into the second half and we're like asleep. So I think I've noticed like lately Thanasis's energy just lights a spark for the team. Like I don't know if you watch the all access documentaries that they do
I
on
haven't caught
YouTube.
those actually. Huh?
Thanasis, they do catch a couple clips of Thanasis on the bench, and there are clips of him like not yelling, but like his energy is insane, like just pumping up everybody, getting everyone back into that like zone of like, this is ride or die, you have to win this game. And I think that's somebody that we need. And when he's on the court, like his energy on the court is phenomenal. He's running around like he just runs around like so fast. It's so funny. Like the energy he has is crazy. And it's not that he messes up that much. Like he dunks, him and Giannis have that chemistry, so it works out perfectly. And he has a chemistry with basically everybody on the team. So I think Thanasis and Pat mainly. I don't really care that much about DJ Wilson. He kind of needs to be traded. Like we already seen what we've seen from him. Bryn Forbes, I think he should stay where he is. Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis maybe could go into the starting role. Like it's debatable because of Brooke Lopez, right? I don't know. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Lots to get in there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Torrey Craig? I know he's a very popular name.
Oh, Torrey Craig. Yeah, I forgot about him.
Like we need more Torrey Craig.
Yeah, Torrey Craig. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him? Do you think like him and Thanasis play somewhat of a similar role, more of the defensive kind of mindset, not very diverse skill set on offense? So compare the two there. Like what do you think? There should be more Craig, less Thanasis, or more Thanasis, less Craig, or just dive into that a little bit.
I think because like I mentioned earlier, Pat's defense, his perimeter defense, like when he closes out, he does this really weird thing where like when someone's shooting like a corner three, he'll like overextend his contest and he'll like run past the contest. It's really weird what he does. I don't really get it, but I think in those scenarios where we're in the fourth quarter, we're locking down on defense, we shouldn't be having Pat out there. We should be having Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig was on the Nuggets last year. He was guarding LeBron. Okay, we don't need a Pat Connaughton guarding KD in the fourth quarter, which that actually did happen in the Nets game, which was unacceptable by Bud. That shouldn't have been Pat Connaughton at the time. That should have been Torrey Craig. But yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Cool. So I'm gonna start with Pat Connaughton. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's so underappreciated for this team. I think you touched on a lot of great things in terms of his skill set. Another really underrated part of his game, in my opinion, is his rebounding.
Yeah, his rebounding is crazy.
Very active on the boards. I mean, clearly he can get up. I mean, we saw him in the dunk contest last year. And I like your point there about his contests in the corner of the three there. Like, he just skies in the air when he does that. It's like, and then he's almost like jumping into the bench, it seems like.
Yeah.
That does frustrate me for sure. Like, I get the intent of, like, he can get up, he can block shots.
Yeah.
I've seen him have some really nice plays blocking shots. But obviously sometimes he's a
doesn't
little
work
aggressive there. I think Pat is important to this team. I really like him around the 20-minute per game mark. And even so, going to your point about him closing games, I think he's a guy who can close a game, to be honest. I'm going to get to a take a little bit later about Bucks playing a little bit more small ball. But I think he's a great guy for a small ball type of lineup. I mean, I think he defends pretty well, even on the perimeter. Like, he moves his feet well. He's athletic. I mean, yeah, in terms of like big bruisers who can kind of just bulldoze over him, like, yeah, that's a weakness there for sure. I think he's got some quickness though. And I think he's just a solid player. Like, there's just a lot of people ripping on him on Twitter, like, and it's more so his shooting ability, like kind of a roller coaster. I mean, it is for a lot of players, right? Like, I mean, there's not many, Joe Harris's who can just Steph Curry's who
That's
just,
true.
when they get that open three, they're going to make it. Like, I mean, yeah, Pat has his ups and downs, but in general, I mean, I don't know what his 3-point percentage is.
He's shooting 39%.
Oh, that's higher than I thought. I was going to go right around 36.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty damn good if you ask me. I mean, a lot of his threes are that catch and shoot too, which I'm more of a fan of that versus a guy like a DJ Augustine who tries to create a shot and it's just, it's a disaster at that point. Like, you've got to have the general quickness and just ball handling skills and more so height from a DJ Augustine perspective to get that shot off. I mean, Middleton, yeah, let's go. I'm down with that all day. Him trying to create shots for himself. And Drew even too. He's got a great step back. But yeah, I mean, I think Pat's really underappreciated, and I think he's going to be a key player for this team going forward. And if he hits shots, like he is just a cornerstone for the bench, in my opinion.
Like, he hit that shot against what was it, like a minute left in the Memphis game? He hit that dish out three. Like, that was a big shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that in him, and he's not afraid of the big moment, and he's very well rounded. Doesn't have too many flaws. He doesn't have like a lot of just really like elite parts of his game, but that's okay.
He's well rounded. Yeah.
Like, I've been saying this a lot to some of my buddies. Like, if Pat Connaughton is your, let's say, 8th, 9th guy coming off the bench, like, that's not bad. I mean,
that's not bad.
Going to kill you at all. I mean, it could be way, way worse than that. So I'm definitely with you on Pat. Let's get to Thanasis. I mean, he's great in terms of the energy, like you said. And I don't have the all access thing, but I try and keep an eye on him on the bench when, Giannis has a poster dunk or something like that. And you just see him just smacking.
Yeah. And he does it on the free throws too. He knocks on the hardwood.
Yeah. I mean, it's great just to have a guy like that. And, I think he can play a role for this team. And in terms of like that energy you said, on that 5-game losing streak, I think it was that second game we lost to Toronto is when he kind of came back into the rotation. He
did. Yeah.
Earlier on in the year, like maybe 10 minutes a game, they were giving him some run. Like, that was when DJ Wilson was even getting some minutes. Like, they were just kind of flirting with every forward they had just to see what they had. And Thanasis stuck for a little bit. He provided some nice energy. I mean, he's active on rebounds. I mean, just kind of hilarious to watch him on defense in general. Like, he'll defend guys full court sometimes, just get in their face. Like, it's kind of funny to me in a way, just because he's that energizer bunny. But I think he can play a role. My one concern with him is clearly on the offensive end. doesn't have much to provide. Obviously, doesn't have really much of a shot to speak of,
Mhm.
and teams can clearly sag off of him and double a Giannis or a Chris.
That's true. That's true.
So that's my concern there, and
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of just going to be a guy where you play him in like 5 to 10 game spans where like the energy is low, and you bring him in and he's going to provide that spark. But I feel like good teams are really going to take advantage of him, and that's my concern with him. Is I just don't think he has a long-term role on the team where game in and game out he's going to be able to give a positive impact.
Yeah.
That's just my take there. I don't
Yeah.
disagree with what you're saying there. I'm a
Yeah.
little concerned about him going forward, especially in a playoff series. I just don't know what he's going to get.
Yeah, he definitely can't be playing the minutes that he's playing now in the playoffs. I just think he has to be used in the right sense of like when the Bucks, when we're like we're shown to be like lacking, when the energy is bad, he should be put in to rejuvenate, to kind of kickstart us again in the game. I don't think he should be playing defense like you said. He's not a really good defender, and his shot isn't really not there. So he double teams get players, and like you said, he should be a specialized player like Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig's offense is lacking as well, but his defense is good. So we have a lot of like special players who they have their little niches,
Sure.
but I think they just have to be used appropriately. And I think some players like Thanasis isn't being used to his full potential in this niche. You know what I mean? Like I think he should be used more for the energy. He's not being used enough for the energy. Torrey Craig, like you've mentioned, his defense isn't even being nearly used at all. Like he's not being used at all in the lineup. Like it's just
it doesn't make too much sense to me. I mean, I think Craig hasn't been like as good as everyone makes him out to be. I think he's had some struggles, but I just think that he's consistent and he's got really long arms. He can defend. I mean, that first game Drew Holiday was out when we started the road trip, the West Coast road trip, when we played Denver, his former team. I mean, he really played good D on Jamal Murray. I mean, obviously, that's a little skewed because he was on that team, so he knows those players' tendencies a little bit more. But man, did he lock them down? And we won that game without Drew Holiday, and Torrey Craig was a big part of that. And he hit like 3 threes, I want to say, in that game too. Like,
yeah, he did. Yeah.
He's right around like low 30s for 3, and I mean, for a guy like that, that's not terrible. Like he's shown that he can make the open 3. Like that's my thing with Thanasis is I don't think he's shown that. So like I just think that Torrey Craig has more of a defensive skill set than Thanasis, and I think Thanasis just is more of the energy. Like I really like how Bud used him in that second Toronto game. Like he didn't play for games and games at that point. He was just sitting on the bench and kind of fizzled out like I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But Bud clearly saw, hey, we don't even look like we want to play this game right now. Like let's throw this guy in there and see what happens. And we made a little bit of a comeback there. And like there was almost a chance where we could have maybe won that game. Like it felt like one of those games to me where we were just too big of a hole. There was no we could get that run, get it to 5, maybe get it to 4 points, and then they would just go on a mini run, and it was all she wrote. And clearly that's what happened there. But all props to Coach Bud there for using a guy like Thanasis when we needed him. And I just think that's where he should be used. And even he could get a 5-minute run, 4-minute run, maybe even every game, and just kind of see what happens. I'd be okay with that more so, and letting Torrey Craig get maybe 10 to 15 minutes a game, and just give him more of an opportunity. I think he's clearly upset that he's not getting minutes.
Yeah, he is upset. I can tell.
Yeah,
I can tell.
And he signed with the team. Obviously a minimum deal, but he comes to a contending team, and he was
excited. He seemed like he was pretty pumped.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he was maybe my second most optimistic signing that we had. I think my favorite was probably Bobby Portis.
Yeah, mine was Bobby Portis. Yeah.
And then I think Craig was right there. I mean, I was like, man, I saw what he did in the bubble, and they made a really nice run, and he was a big reason for that. And I was kind of surprised that they let him go. To be honest, I mean, obviously he didn't get really any money, so that was a little bit of a shock to me. So when we signed him, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like defensive guy who can low 30s from three. Like we'll take
Mhm.
it, like give him 15 minutes a game and he's going to make an impact. So I'm definitely with you there. Other than that, from a bench perspective, I'm pretty content with it as well. I like Forbes right around the 15 to 20 mark,
Yeah.
Pat
Yeah.
right around 20.
Yeah.
I wish Portis would get more. That's
How
my
many,
only
how many
note
is he
there
looking at right now? Let me see. He's looking at 21.6, which isn't that bad.
for Portis.
Yeah, 22. We'll say 22.
22, sure. Yeah, not bad. 25 would be a little bit better
Yeah,
for
25 for
me.
sure.
I mean, he's just been too good for this team, and we got to utilize his offensive ability more. And he also has that energy type like Athanasis does, where when he hits a shot, like he'll get in guys' faces and scream and get hyped.
Mhm.
Like he's just more of a bruiser, like a dog out there. Where it's just he's
Mhm.
gonna play hard, and like he can definitely provide some of that energy that Thanasis does. Obviously, he's not running all around the court like Thanasis does, but I think he's got some of that just raw energy in him
Yeah.
that can really help this team. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm good with the rotation here for the most part. I mean, I think Bud's doing what he can do with the, okay bench that we have. I mean, I think it's pretty good. Obviously,
Yeah.
not as good as years past,
Mhm.
but overall, I'm not too concerned about it. But let's see here. Maybe we can upgrade that bench a little bit here. I want to get your thoughts on the trade deadline, March 25th. It's coming up. What do you think the Bucks are going to do? Will they make a trade? Will they make a big splash, more of a small move? And even the buyout market can be a discussion here as well. So, what's your thoughts on the trade deadline coming up for the Bucks?
My thoughts are that we can't really do that much. Like I'll give you the numbers because I mentioned to you earlier that I had some numbers to give you. But right now our salary total before we're even including Drew Holiday's bonuses is $134 million, right? And the hard cap in the NBA is $138.9 million. So we're looking at we're just like 400,000. We're around there. And then you have to add Drew Holiday's contract bonuses. So that's an extra 138,000.
Right.
And that goes to 138 million point four. And we have $400,000 left that we could give to anybody. $400,000. That is not a lot of money.
Tough.
That is, I'm just looking at the number and I'm getting scared because like the only thing we could do is maybe a two-way player for like a few weeks. Like you can't really afford anybody on like a full 2-year contract with a 400,000. That doesn't even work. Like this is a partial contract we're talking about.
Right.
And we've seen Miles Powell. So I think honestly, the front office is looking for very small moves. We've seen Miles Powell because that contract is going to be very small.
Yep.
So I think if we can get maybe one more piece that's very small or kind of like a Miles Powell, bring him up a level, pay a very small amount and see what he does. I mean, we can't really make that many moves. Like I just want to see what they do. Honestly, I love the Miles Powell trade. I think he's a great guy. I think he didn't even get drafted, right? I think that
Yep, I think you're right. And
yeah, he
I
didn't even
believe
get drafted.
he's still under the G League affiliate, right? I don't think we brought him up to the Bucks. I know we
Mhm.
brought up Mamadi Diakite,
Mhm.
but I thought that Powell kind of just took Diakite's spot, like where he was going to be in the G League, and then he brought Diakite up to the roster. Am I right saying that?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna come up. I'm glad we brought Diakite up because I mean, like everyone was screaming on Twitter. Everyone was screaming on Twitter.
Yeah, and I don't know if you follow Jake Reitz on Twitter.
Yeah, Jake. He always posts about Diakite.
Yeah, I'm glad I found him on there, and he does a great job. Just
Yeah, he
keeping
does a
up
great
with
job.
the G League games. I mean, I don't know how he does
Shout
it.
out to you, Jake.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and I mean, clearly we saw Diakite play really freaking well in the G League. Obviously, the talent is not up to the NBA, but I mean, when a guy's dominating like that, like Christian Wood, we've seen in years past, it hurts me to even bring his name up, but I mean, you got to just bring him up and see what he can do. I mean, I hope that we give him like a little sprinkle of minutes here and there,
Mhm.
just to see what he can do. I mean, I think he provides somewhat of a skill set where
Mhm.
he can be valuable to this team. He's 6'9", I believe.
He's a double double. He's a walking double double.
Yeah, he was like 18 and 12 in
Yeah.
the G League,
Yeah.
something like that. And I mean, clearly he fits the role of like a player that we could use more of like a
He's
stretch
got the winning
back.
mentality. He has the winning mentality. He
Yeah, I
won a
mean,
state championship, or
yeah,
not a state national championship.
yeah, coming from Virginia there, Tony Bennett, great coach. We've seen guys like Malcolm Brogdon, have really
Mhm.
great success.
Yeah.
Joe Harris, I believe, was
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
player as well. I mean, these are guys who are really performing in the NBA. So yeah, I mean, I'm on the Diakite hype train for sure. Really hope to see him get out there at some point. I'm just glad we brought him up in general. I was worried that a team was going to swoop in there and maybe sign him to their active roster, and then
Yeah, I
he'd be
was.
screwed.
Pretty
Um, so good thing that we brought him up. But yeah, I think you're pretty on point with the trade deadline here. I think a small move can be done for sure. My most realistic option would be like a DJ Wilson
Mhm.
and maybe a second round pick or two for maybe a guy like a Wayne Ellington on Detroit, or
Oh,
even
Wayne
Austin
Ellington.
Rivers. I don't think would be bad at all
Yeah.
on the Knicks.
Mhm.
DJ obviously he's doesn't have much value, but he's an expiring contract, so it's going to help a team where, like, I'll go back to Austin Rivers. I think he signed like a 3-year deal, so and he's not playing with the Knicks anymore. They got Derrick Rose, so
Mhm.
they've got other guards, Alfred Payton, that are getting minutes over him. So that's not a guy that they're really looking to play anymore, and they are rumored to be shopping him. So I think something like that, where the Knicks could get off that 3-year deal, take a DJ Wilson,
Mhm.
a second round pick, just to throw in some sort of asset for them.
Mhm.
And get DJ Wilson. He's off the books next year, and that would make sense for both teams. So that's what I think will end up happening, is something like that. Um, I know a lot of people are clamoring for us to trade Brook Lopez, and I just don't think it's going to happen. Like,
No,
we're
his
so close.
contract is, what is it, like 58 million over 4 years or something like that?
Yeah, I thought it was 12 to 14 a year
12 to 14.
average.
Yeah.
So like, it can be done. I think we could make a bigger deal. It's just the salary's got to match almost exactly, because we're close to that hard cap and we can't go over. So
Mhm.
I think it's possible. Like, I was listening to the Eurostep podcast earlier, and Ty and Rohan do a great job, and they flirted the idea of like looking at trading with the Orlando Magic, maybe getting an Evan Fournier, trading Brook Lopez, DJ Wilson
I
for
was,
Evan Fournier or
yeah,
something.
Evan Fournier.
I mean, I just don't see that happening. I don't think the Bucks are going to get that aggressive to make a move like that, which could be great. I mean, Fournier is a great shooter. I think he would really help this team, but
Mhm.
Brook Lopez still has a role, and I think
Mhm.
if we don't find someone to fill that role, I think it's going to be, it could be more detrimental than adding an Evan Fournier to the roster. So that's really where I'm at.
Mhm.
Just the DJ Wilson salary dump, get a cheaper guy, seems to make the most sense for me.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of buyout market, and something I want to mention too before we even get to the buyout market is that I think the Bucks ultimately will make a move, because not only just to get an asset, but to get a little bit more cap room. If they could maybe, Ellington was making like $2.5 million on a 1-year deal from Detroit.
Yeah.
If we flipped DJ and a second round pick for him, we
Mhm.
would get right around $2 million in cap, which will help us get back into that buyout market, because as of right now, we're not able to sign a guy for the rest of the season until like April 7th or 8th. So we're going to miss out on some of those prime buyout guys as the trade deadline comes to a close. So that could be really important for us to make a little move like that. I mean, we've been interested in the buyout market the last few years, bringing in Marvin Williams last year, which I really liked that pickup.
Mhm.
But
Unfortunately.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a thing that John Horst is going to look at too, is like, we got to be players for in the market for guys who are getting bought out. So, I mean, Blake Griffin was never coming to the Bucks. I don't really
Mhm.
even want him.
Yeah,
To be honest.
No, I didn't know. He's on a decline. He's
100%. Like, I mean, he was the athleticism guy, just dunking, jumping over cars in the
Yeah.
slam dunk contest. I mean, he was more of a slasher, and now he just kind of sits on the perimeter and shoots threes and doesn't do that very well at all. So I don't think that really tips the needle that much for the Nets. I think he will help them because now he's on a good team. Like, he's gonna have more willingness to play hard and that sort of thing, which is one of the things that annoys me about the league is like how these players can just be like, I'm done. I don't want to play on this team anymore. They get bought out or whatever, and then the
James
best
Harden
team goes and snags them up. Like, it's great if you're that team, but otherwise it's just like, this just sucks.
Yeah, it does. Like the Houston fans, I don't know how they were reacting at the time because I remember they had the optimism of like getting John Wall, and then James Harden was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then they were like, what's happening? We just got you John Wall. So I don't know. I feel bad for Houston fans, but
I totally agree there. They were like, similar to the Bucks. They were really close to winning a title there.
yeah.
And they had that 3-2 lead against Golden State, and then Chris Paul blows out his hamstring, and the rest is history there. But yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on the trade deadline. I just don't see anything too big going on there. So how about we maybe discuss a player or two that we haven't really touched base on much? Let's talk about Dante a little bit. I'm a huge Dante fan. A lot of people, I've gotten this from over 10 people that say I look a lot like him. I usually have
You
more.
do look like Dante.
Here's another one here. And especially when I've got the shorter hair right now, it's a little all over the place. But let's talk about Dante a little bit. I'm a huge fan, just like in terms of my raw fandom of the Bucks. I really like the player. But what are your thoughts on Dante?
I think he's a great two-way player. His defense, his energy, I think he's definitely progressed. He's better. Like the first 2 years he came in, I remember the first year he didn't really play right because he got injured or
that
yeah.
Heel injury, I believe.
Yeah.
He played like 15 to 20 games.
Yeah.
He was getting minutes
Yeah.
right away too.
Yeah.
Like, it was like Malcolm Brogdon when we drafted him. Like, he saw minutes from game one, and Dante,
yeah, he did.
Bud Muster, he clearly likes him and was giving him that role. So yep, you're definitely right there.
Yeah, I think Bud likes him because in that Villanova, that final game in the championship, he showed up, and I think Bud knows that Dante's that type of player. And I've seen like Lowry, I've seen other players, like respected guards in the league who respect Dante a lot because they know that Dante is like one of the best two-way guards. And like, he's not like upper echelon, but he's definitely up there when it comes to like defensive presence and offensive presence. And something that I want to get into when it comes to Dante, because I read it on The Athletic, was that Dante, when he lays up, you should know how, when you go with your right foot, you lay it with your left hand.
Yep.
I've known, and someone mentioned this, that Dante, when he goes with his left foot, he'll lay up with his left hand. And that's something that they're noticing, that Dante isn't finishing when he's going with the same hand and same foot to the rim. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, that it's different, right? I mean, I think he's a slasher kind of player. Like, I mean, when I saw Dante blow up, in the NCAA tournament there, like, I thought like this dude's just a dead eye shooter. Like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
And his shooting has been kind of all over the place so far for the Bucks here, but
yeah, it hasn't been.
I think he still has the ability. He's got a great release. He can make those tough shots. I mean, he's made some really, really tight contested shots. I mean, when you see guys do that, like, it's not a fluke a lot of the time. Like, it's just hard to be consistent in the league, and I think that's just the Bucks summed up a lot of the ways. Like, they're just not consistent all the time. We lose to bad teams, especially more this year. I mean, the last 2 years we were beating up on the bad teams, and it was great. And we would be hit or miss against the good teams. But this year it's been all over the place. I always think like I never know what I'm gonna get with the Bucks every game when I'm watching them. It's like what team's going to show up today. And
Sure.
this year
Sure.
is a prime example of that. But yeah, I mean, I think Dante can get to the basket. He's quick. He operates pretty well in the pick and roll too with
Mhm.
Giannis.
Yeah, his pick and roll game.
Yeah,
Crazy.
for sure. And it's weird how he does it. I've definitely noticed that, jumping off the same leg as he like jumping
Layups.
off his left, shooting with his left. It's very odd.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's gotten a lot better, I think, this season at being able to finish at the rim. Like early on in the year, there were just times where he kind of gets a little too like spazzy at times, where he's
Yeah.
just like, I got to do something. Like I'm just gonna full rush into the lane, kind of like Bledsoe, and just try and
Yeah.
a play, and it just doesn't
Doesn't
work.
work.
It's just unnecessary. It's like, just let the offense happen. Like just play your role. Be that guy who, like, I'm fine with him, going at the rim. Like we
Yeah.
need guys who like can switch it up a little bit and not just hit catch and shoot shots or take catch and shoot shots, I must say. So I think he's got that ability, but there's just the thing that really drives me nuts with him is when he does that early on in the shot clock. It's like, man, what are you doing? Like, we don't need this, like, I got to get to the basket when they're clearly set on defense and he's just trying to make a play. It's like, I like the aggression. I really do, but I just think he needs to know his role a little bit more. And I think he'll get there. I mean, he's an important player to this team. I think his defense is definitely a tier above his offense.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
He's really active with his hands, and he just makes great plays and gets a lot of steals.
Steals, crazy.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. So like we need him to play well. Like if he can get to, like, if he could hover around 15 points a game, like the second half of the year, getting around that 40% from three, like look out for this team. I mean, he's that X factor for us, in my opinion. I mean, we're relying on the big three, Giannis, Chris, and Drew, to do their thing. And obviously if one of them doesn't perform, we're going to see that impact. But assuming they do, like if Dante can get up to that level, I mean, that's going to be the key for this team to make a deep playoff run. So,
and I don't,
it's our best young asset that we have. I've heard guys even, like, obviously he was almost traded this offseason. And at the time, like, I was excited about getting Bogdanovic just because he seemed like a perfect fit for the team.
Yeah.
Great shooter, more consistent. Definitely not the defender that Dante is, but
definitely not.
As of right now, like, I'm okay with that trade not happening. I really am. I think in the long run, it's going to benefit this team. Dante's still on a cheap deal. He's still a young asset. That he's really the only young asset we have. So,
and he has a lot of upside.
Exactly. I think he's got some room to grow. So yeah, he's just a guy that we just need a little bit more consistency from.
I just wanted to mention one more thing about Dante.
Sure.
I've noticed that Dante, I think something that he could improve on to make him to take that next step. I've noticed like he can, his pace is incredible. Like he can speed up and slow down like so fast. And I've noticed that he has that kind of like speed like Kyrie. And if he can like start to beat his men, like if he can use his handles more efficiently, start using a little bit more crossover, start like creating that space, do something that Chris Middleton does, create space. All right. That's something that DiVincenzo, because we know he's aggressive. We know he can score to the rim, but we don't see him, crossing up as much, because I feel like he could, with the skills that he has, how fast he is, how energetic he is. I feel like if he can get that handle more and create that space with somebody, he can really, because we've seen he's a 3-point shooter, right? Like,
oh yeah,
he can shoot. Like the last few games, he's been shooting over. I think he's had a few 30 feet shots.
Yep.
I think he's had 2 or 3. So I know his confidence is getting up there. So if he can create that space, get a step back maybe, or get that shot up, that's something that would take him a step higher.
I really like that point there.
Yeah.
He's got a very diverse skill set on offense. I just don't see it. Sometimes we just don't see it in general. Like obviously Giannis does his thing and Chris does his thing and Drew is great with the ball. But like there's just times where Dante just, I feel like, tries to do too much and maybe not do the right thing. Like you said, I think he's got some good ball handles and can somewhat create his own shot,
Mhm.
and hit tough shots. Like
Yeah,
the
that's what he's good
natural
at.
scorer, in
Yeah.
my opinion. We're just not seeing it consistently. So I completely agree there. I think he's just got to find his role a little bit more, and if he does, this Bucks team is really going to take the next
Yeah,
step.
yeah, for sure.
So I think we touched on pretty much every player here that we could talk about. So I want to ask you a long-term question here for this season, and that's, do you think this team can make the finals?
That is a very, very hard question to answer, but I think the way we're going right now, I want to have optimism. I feel like if certain players step up, for example, if Dante steps up in the playoffs, we're going to see that this team is going to be unparalleled. Like, I feel like Dante, I think not a lot of people realize that Dante is probably the key factor on the starting lineup. If Dante, we've seen this season when Dante has great games, that what's that one game he had? He had 20, the 22-point
That
game
was
or
the
23-point game.
Pelican game, I believe.
Yeah. And we won that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were out without
Yeah.
Drew. He had that
Yeah.
that he drew that charge at the end of the game on Brandon. Ingram,
Crazy.
and he had, I think, like 6 steals or something like
Yeah,
that.
crazy,
Remember, it
crazy.
was a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what he can do, right? And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
totally right there.
Yeah. And I think if certain people step up, I think we could win. Philadelphia, I don't know how, like, we're definitely going to match up against them maybe if Joel Embiid wakes up and does stuff in the playoffs, because we know that Joel Embiid's a regular season guy. And that's kind of, I want to just kind of go off topic a little bit to the MVP talk, how people are kind of doing this double standard where they say that, oh, Giannis doesn't show up in the playoffs and he's not in the MVP conversation, but Joel Embiid doesn't show up in the playoffs and somehow he's in the MVP conversation. Like, I don't really get that. I don't know how they weigh it, because Giannis is putting up 29 points and he's not even top 5 in MVP, but
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense, honestly.
Yeah.
To me, it's like voter fatigue. Like,
yeah, it's just voter fatigue.
They want to see him win in the playoffs and get to
Yeah.
a finals at the bare minimum. And until he does that, and I don't think he's winning another MVP unless he puts up like 40 a game or just astronomically high. And I think that's where we're at here. Like, Joel Embiid is clearly loved by the media. They love talking about him. He's like the Luka Doncic.
The East.
Where they just they're just all about talking about him. And I get it. They're great players, but like you said, Philly just seems like they always collapse somehow. I don't trust them even going into the playoffs. Like, yeah, they're a great team. I like the moves they made, adding a Seth Curry this off season. I think that was a great pickup for them, but I don't trust them. I just think they're just some way, shape, or form, an injury, which we've seen the last 2 postseasons, either Embiid or Ben Simmons. Something just always happens. And even though this team looks a little bit better this year, obviously, and Doc Rivers is a more stable coach, I don't trust them at all. So that's my take on Philly.
Yeah. I think Ben Simmons scored, I think he had 17 points per game in the Raptors series last year, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he did really bad in the Raptors series when they got swept against them last year. So yeah, like, he just has to prove himself. I don't want to hear any Philadelphia talk until they get past the first round. All right. The Nets, I don't know. The Blake Griffin thing, I am kind of angry about it. Like, oh yeah, they have Blake Griffin, but also they gave up defense. So, and they were already a bad defensive team as it was. So they're even more of a defensive liability now. Like, that's the most overshadowed thing in the East. Okay, yeah, the Nets have a great offense, but their defense is what, number 20 or 27th in, it's really bad. Like, it's just really bad. Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
My take on the Nets is I honestly think they're the favorites to win the title. For sure. And I think they should be, just because like their defense isn't great, obviously. With that, but man, can they score at will?
They can.
They just have 3 of the best scorers in the league, and it's going to be tough to stop that team. Like, they can put up 140 any night. And it's just like, man, how you gotta be able to win those shootout games to beat them. And if the Bucks can't clean up their defense a little bit here, like, obviously the last 2 years one of the best, if not the best, defensive team in the league in the regular season. Obviously, not the case this year, but if we don't clean that up, like I don't know if we can take that team. I really don't. I mean, they're just too elite offensively, and like, yeah, we have great players, and like they don't have a great matchup for Giannis at all. Like
They don't.
DeAndre Jordan, he can't
No.
guard Giannis. I mean, he's big and somewhat athletic, but I mean, he can't do it. They're clearly they double him and make the other guys beat him. But man, I don't see how they're not the favorites at this point. And adding James Harden, like he's clearly adapted his playing style. And man, he's like
his facilitating
point guard. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's got that game where he can just take anyone off the dribble and hit that little floater in the paint, like almost at will. And he can obviously hit the crazy step back threes, and he's a really good passer. I mean, just him molding into that role, not the dribble, shoot with 1 second left like he did in Houston the last few years. Like now that he's in this role and Kyrie's kind of playing that 2 guard, and he's just an absolutely gifted scorer. I mean, man, it's just going to be tough to beat a team like that. So I think we could get to the finals. I think it's possible if we like just shoot really well. Like it's a shooter's league these days. We can get hot and really make some shots and just maybe make a little tweak here at the trade deadline and clean up the defense a little bit. Like it's possible. We have really good players and some other great role players. Like we could make it happen, but I think it's really going to take a lot for us to get there, in my opinion.
And I think another thing that should be mentioned is that like we don't really know, like considering it's COVID and what happened last season in the bubble, I think we should kind of take it as like a grain of salt of what will happen in the playoffs, because we've seen what Miami did last year, right? Like we didn't even expect them to go anywhere, right? And they went to the finals. So they're really, any team can go crazy, because in my opinion, the Celtics are still there.
Oh, definitely.
So they can still do something. I feel like there are still a lot of teams that are there, but my opinion for the Bucks, for them to stay there and to compete against the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, those 2 guys are gonna have to play the series of their life, because Chris Middleton, and that is going to be a tough matchup with, I don't know who Chris is going to take. Who do you think Chris is going to take? He's not going to take Kyrie. He can't take Kyrie. Who's going to take Joe?
And that
Drew's going to take KD for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, you said who'd you say Drew was going to
Drew's probably going to guard KD, because KD didn't do really good in the Nets game when Drew guarded him. And I think Giannis is obviously going to guard either DeAndre Jordan or another one of those players, or switch off. But
for me, I almost think it makes more sense to throw Drew on Harden.
On Harden?
I just think he's operating the offense. He's the one who's calling the shots. And if Drew can get in his face a little bit and just, do the things that he does that we've seen him do this year, I think that's going to provide the most value for the Bucks on defense. I would throw Giannis on KD. I mean, they're like the same height, 6'11". I mean, obviously, it's going to be a tough guard for Giannis. I mean, KD is the best offensive player in the league. I don't think that's a debate, in my opinion. Clearly going to be a tough matchup for him, but I think he can do it. And then that's a series where, you throw Brook Lopez on a DeAndre Jordan, and then Middleton is maybe you even mask Middleton a little bit, throw him on Joe Harris, and then you throw Dante on Kyrie, because I think Dante on Kyrie would actually make a lot of sense. He's quick. I mean, he's a pesky defender, and you don't want Middleton to get too exhausted on the defensive end guarding one of those top 3 guys. So that actually sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking like Dante could go on James, but yeah, that reasoning with like the whole Kyrie is really fast and tiring, that makes a lot of sense there. And I think it's going to come down to Drew, honestly, because like you said, I don't know how many questions back, but you said that like we don't really know the impact that Drew has. Like we don't see we have his stats, but we don't see the little things that he does. Like his defensive presence, like switching, his calling out, like the all access. There are clips of him calling out positions, like his position calling, everything. There are little things that he does that just changes the game, and that showed in that 5-game losing streak. Like once we lost Drew, everything collapsed. And yeah, I think he's the mesh.
I totally agree. I mean, I think we haven't even seen like the complete player that he can
Yeah,
be. I
not
really
even
would like him
close.
to be more aggressive on the offensive end. Even I think he's so composed. He finds those holes in the defense, finds the right spots. He
Mhm.
makes the right plays. And he's just such a solid offensive player. I'm fine with him shooting shots. I mean, he
Yeah.
can create his own shot and he
Mhm.
can hit them. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we've seen the full Drew Holiday quite yet.
Nope.
And his defense, like you said, like he definitely seems like that middle linebacker, the Ray Lewis type, that's just like calling all the shots and knowing where guys need to be, and that's so incredibly valuable to a team, especially like the Bucks. I don't think Eric Bledsoe was that guy.
No, he wasn't.
Trying to
No.
rip on Bledsoe continuously here, but I mean, it's just the upgrade was clearly
Mhm.
worthwhile for us. So yeah, I agree. I mean, Drew Holiday's got to be that swing player, and if he can really get in Harden's face and really get to him a little bit, and he got Dante chasing around Kyrie,
Yeah.
because Kyrie's playing that off-ball two guard and getting a lot of movement. I think that could actually work pretty well for them. It's just it's going to come down to making shots, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're going to make their shots. They're going to get theirs. Joe Harris is that dude's a stud at shooting.
Lights out.
I think he's the best 3-point.
Best, yeah, best for sure. Has
Yeah,
to be.
it might not even be that close. So they've just got just so many pieces to work with. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening here. Like I said earlier, I think more than other years, this 1 seed could be really valuable for the Bucks this season if they can squeak in there. Only 2 games back from Philly. It's certainly possible. We're going to play Philly a couple times here in the second half. If we can beat them, I think we play them at least twice, maybe 3
Yeah.
times. I'm not quite sure.
Twice, I think.
So those are going to be pivotal games. We play Brooklyn at least one more time. I mean, if we can start beating some elite teams, like that's been a thing for me this season that drove me nuts. Is our best win. Finally, we got a good elite win against the Clippers not too long ago. And like other than that, we just couldn't get it done against the Nets. We were really close. We almost beat the Suns without Holiday. I mean, just these games that I've seen so many times where it's like we have the chance to win it at the end. We just can't get it done. It's tough. And I think if we can get that 1 seed this year, it's really, really going to help, especially if we can maybe get some more fans back into the arena once more people get vaccinated and whatnot. I'm a season ticket holder myself. I'm going to be going to 4 games in the second half here, and their hopes are to get 25% capacity in there for the second half of the season, and then who knows at that point. So I think the 1 seed is very valuable this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. I mean, honestly, we can all agree that we got screwed over big time last year in the bubble. I think we all know that, but I mean, we can't really take that as like an excuse. We still played terrible against Miami. There's no excusing that. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Cool. So let's end it with the second half of the season here. What would you like to see more from the Bucks in the second half of the season? Just in terms of anything we talked about, bench rotations, defensive schemes, just overall anything from any player and any coaching style. What would you like to see more from the Bucks here?
First off, I think like you mentioned, Drew being back with him having COVID and everything, I'm glad he's safe. But I think that is literally going to rejuvenate everything. I watched that Clippers game and I had a huge smile on my face in that fourth quarter because for some reason, even though it was that close with the Clippers, I wasn't really that scared because I knew Drew was there. And I'm starting to get really excited to what Drew, Giannis, and Chris can do because they beat Kawhi and PG. I think Kawhi had a really bad game against the Bucks in that game. I remember, like Drew did really good against him.
Really rough fourth quarter. I don't think they scored for the last at least 4 minutes of that
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
And I think it was Kawhi and PG went like 0 for 9 from the field
yeah.
at that time. I mean,
Crazy.
it looked like the bubble collapse last year
Mhm,
they had against the
mhm,
Denver Nuggets when they were up 3-1
mhm,
and couldn't close that series out. So
mhm,
yeah, that's a great point.
mhm. And if that game, if we can, like, if the second season can be a representation of that game, then that's what I would want it to be. I want it to be energy. I want it to be intensity on the offensive floor, the defensive floor, like communicating and coming into the third quarter and not going to sleep. Because in the third quarter in that Clippers game, we were still there. Like, yeah, we did lose the lead. We had a huge lead, and then they came back, and that was kind of expected because it is the third quarter, but we did kind of keep that lead. We didn't blow it. They got a little bit ahead, but we came back. And yeah, if this second half of the season we can really utilize like that fourth quarter, if we can work and improve on improving the Bucks' fourth quarter, because our closing out is a really big issue. Because
Big time.
yeah, it's like we're used to scoring 20, 15 points on teams and winning by that amount, and then when it's like a 5 point margin, we just lose it in the last like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it's terrible, and if we can improve in that sense, then I think we can really take it far in the finals. I really think we can.
I really like that last point there. Like you said, the last 2 years, just blow out games, starters on the bench, bringing in the bench guys and just it was great. I mean, yeah, we were
Mhm.
winning these games, but
Yeah.
we didn't have a lot of the experience of being in
Hmm.
those close games. And
Hmm.
this year, they've been in so many close games, and
Hmm. So many.
it's been up and down.
Yeah.
But I think lately, even the Memphis game, the last game we played here, just about a week ago. I mean, that was I was not feeling good when we
No,
lost
I
that
was
game
I was
here.
really I was shaky.
Oh, no doubt. And it just felt like that one was we were going to lose it. And
Yeah.
honestly, that would have been a bad loss because just losing the last game before the first half, it just after
Hmm.
a big Clippers win and then obviously the big embarrassment against Denver.
Hmm.
It just I don't think it would have been great for the team's mojo in general. But
Yeah.
pulling out that game, especially with the Drew game winner, I mean, I think that in itself is like you said, it's just going to be like, all right, like we gotta figure this out. Like we gotta
Yeah.
play better and not have it come down to this point
Yeah.
of just being up and down in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
In that Clippers game, like you said, they were great to close out the game. We saw
Mhm.
in the third quarter, Serge Ibaka had like 12 points,
Yeah.
5 for
Yeah. He
6
did
from the
crazy.
field. I mean, that's almost like you almost take it at
And
that
that's
point. He
yeah.
was making tough shots. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't Kawhi, it wasn't Paul George. Like it's like almost if dude's making tough shots, like what can you do at that point
Yeah.
sometimes? Better offense usually always beats better
Mhm.
defense.
Yeah.
So that one I wasn't too concerned about. It's just, our record of when we're trailing going into the fourth quarter is very bad.
Yeah, it
And
is.
we were trailing in that game, which just kind of had some negative thoughts running through my
Mhm.
mind. I was like, is
Yeah.
this going to be one of those games again?
Yeah.
But we saw him turn it around. And
Mhm.
Giannis has mentioned in some of his like post game press conferences that it's great to be in these close games. It's different for this team, and it could really benefit them in the playoffs, being able to just be used to that atmosphere.
Mhm.
Every possession matters. I mean, it should regardless, but you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, I really like that point
Mhm.
there. In terms of what I'd like to see a little bit, I agree with most of what you said. I'm going to go on a different point in terms of I'd like to see more of that small ball lineup that I talked about earlier. I think that just this day and age, you've got to have that small ball lineup. It comes into play a lot. Like
Mhm.
Brooklyn, for example, Blake Griffin, he might end up running the 5 in that small ball lineup. And
Mhm.
DeAndre Jordan, I mean, yeah, he's going to start games, but I don't think he's going to close games unless maybe it's against the 76ers, for an
Mhm.
Embiid. But I think they're really going to utilize a small ball lineup with like Blake, KD, Kyrie, Harden, and Joe Harris.
Mhm.
So you've got to have that sort of lineup in today's NBA, and Bobby Portis is perfect for that. I
Mhm.
mean, you put him at the 5 or Giannis at the 5, him at the 4, whatever you want to do. I don't think it really matters. And then Drew, Middleton, and then either one of these three guys, Dante, Pat, or Forbes. it would be between Dante and Pat for me. I really like Pat in that role.
Yeah.
I think it should be Dante. It really should. But we just got to see what he does in the second half of the year. And I think it's good for Coach Bud to have like that three kind of options there to like ride the hot hand a little bit. You know, like it's probably going to come down to who's making shots. I mean, Dante is the best defender of the three. I think Pat he's a step below for sure, but I think he's still good enough to be valuable in that role. I've actually been somewhat impressed with Bryn Forbes' defense this season.
Yeah, I have too.
I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit. I'll give you my spiel. I knew he's a very undersized two guard, like 6'2", 6'3", pretty stocky. He's got a good NBA body, but he actually moves his feet pretty well, and he definitely tries out there and contests shots pretty well. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's kind of where I'm at with his D.
Yeah, I've in the beginning of the season, I heard there was a lot of issues with like him, driving the lane and not being that good on the offensive end when it came to not shooting. And on the defensive end, I was worried about him not being able to keep his chest out in front of the player and they'd kind of beat him. But I've noticed that he's really able to stay in front of his man. And I thought that was a thing that what he wasn't going to be able to do. And off pick and rolls, he wasn't going to be able to get on that man and stay in front of him. But he has been able to stay in front of him. And he's good off switches. He's got, like you said, his feet are fast. He keeps his hands up. And I'm really not that his defense has been a plus and it's been better. It's an improvement for the team.
I totally agree there. I mean, looking back at the offseason when we started signing some of these guys, I would just look for some Reddit threads of I'll just type in Bryn Forbes Reddit and just see what Spurs fans thought of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, yeah, his defense isn't great. He's an undersized two guard. I mean, he's going to get bullied by some of these bigger guys. And I didn't see much positive there. So it was a concern for me for sure. I knew he was a great shooter, but that was really it. And man, he's really impressed me on the defensive end. So I think he's a candidate for that small ball lineup, especially if he's shooting like he does. I mean, man, he gets tough shots just off the off pick and rolls, just popping it right away, like those JJ Redick shots where he's fading to the left and just somehow makes them consistently. He can do that, and that's really valuable to this team. So that's pretty much where I'm at in terms of what I'd like to see more in the second half. I still want Bud to continue with making these adjustments and switching more on defense and that sort of thing, and just knowing what he has on his bench. Like you said, throw Thanasty out there if we need some energy, or give Torrey Craig a little more run, or just utilize the guys that you have. And I think he's actually done a really good job of that this year. So that's really my main point there is the small ball lineup. So that's all we've got for you guys. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. This is my first guest on the podcast here, and thanks a lot for joining me.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I mean, I'm new to this. I'm just trying to improve, and he gave me the opportunity, so I want to thank him for that. And thank you guys for watching. And I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, well, just thanks again, and maybe just give one more reminder of where they can find you on Twitter.
So you can find me at Bucks_take on Twitter. I'm there every day. So if you want to send me a message or you want to @ me, I'm going to reply. So don't worry about that. That's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, man. And let's do this sometime again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and go Bucks.
Yeah. Fear the deer.